I first heard the name Bell whispered inside a church, not spoken normally, whispered. The kind of whisper people use when they believe something might hear them if they say it too loudly. Back then, northern Tennessee was still mostly wilderness, dense woods pressed against muddy wagon trails, and after sundown, the land became black enough to swallow a man whole. We lived hard in those days. Most folks worked from sunrise until their hands bled, then prayed through the night that sickness, winter, or bad luck won't take the rest. And in all my years living in the Red River, I had never seen fear spread through people the way it spread after the trouble began at the Bell Farm. At first, nobody called it a witch. They just said strange things were happening around John Bell's property. Knocking sounds, animals behaving wrong, whispers inside empty rooms, children waking up screaming in the middle of the night. Most of us dismissed it. Friendlier life makes people superstitious. A fox scratching against a wall becomes a demon by morning if fear gets hold of the story first. That was what I believed too, until I met Betsy Bell. I remember the first time I saw her after the disturbances began. She was standing outside the family cabin near dusk while cold wind moved through the trees behind her. She couldn't have been more than a teenager then, but something in her face looked exhausted beyond her years. Her eyes kept drifting toward the woods like she expected someone or something to step out from between the trees at any moment. When I greeted her, she forced a smile, but it disappeared almost immediately. "You shouldn't stay after dark," she told me quietly. I laughed back then. God forgive me for that, because I thought she was frightened by ghost stories. I didn't yet understand that fear had already moved into their house. The Bell Farm sat in a lonely stretch of land surrounded by woods thick enough to block moonlight. Their cabin was sturdy but isolated, the kind of place where nighttime sounds carried strangely through the trees. Coyotes screamed out there sometimes. Owls watched silently from branches, and when wind swept across the fields after midnight, the whole world seemed to groan like old wood settling underground. But the sounds coming from the Bell cabin weren't normal. The first night I stayed there, I heard them myself. It started after midnight. Everyone inside the house had gone quiet. John Bell sat near the fireplace pretending calm, though I noticed he kept gripping the arms of his chair whenever the cabin creaked. Betsy stayed close to her mother while the younger children avoided looking toward the dark corners of the room. Nobody spoke much. That silence alone frightened me. Then the knocking began. 3 slow knocks against the outside wall, not loud, deliberate. John Bell stood immediately. The room froze. Another knock came from the opposite side of the cabin, then another above us. I grabbed my lantern while John reached for his rifle, and together we stepped outside into the freezing Tennessee dark. Nothing waited there. No footprints, no animal, no movement in the fields. Only woods. Miles and miles of woods breathing in the darkness around us. Then we heard Betsy scream from inside the cabin. We ran through the door and found her collapsed against the floor, clutching her hair while her mother tried desperately to calm her. "She pulled me," Betsy cried. Nobody stood near her, but clumps of her hair lay scattered across the floorboards. I remember the feeling that came over the room then, not panic, recognition, as if the family had already seen this happen too many times before. John Bell looked at me slowly, and for the first time since I arrived, I saw real fear in his face. "She likes Betsy," he whispered. The way he said it turned my blood cold. Not it, she. That was the first moment I realized the Bell family truly believed something lived inside that house with them. Something intelligent, something cruel. And before dawn came, I would hear its voice for myself. I did not sleep that night. None of us did. After what happened to Betsy, the cabin felt wrong in a way I cannot properly explain even now. Every sound seemed sharper, every shadow looked deeper than it should have. The lantern light barely reached the corners of the room, and beyond those corners, the darkness felt alive somehow, like it was listening to us breathe. Betsy sat beside her mother, wrapped in blankets, trembling violently. Every few minutes she glanced toward the staircase, not because she saw something there, because she expected to. John Bell poured himself whiskey with shaking hands, though he barely drank it. He looked like a man carrying exhaustion deep inside his bones. His wife tried keeping the younger children calm, but the fear inside that cabin had already spread too far. And outside, the woods had gone silent. No insects, no owls, no wind. That frightened me more than the knocking. In Tennessee wilderness, silence usually means a predator is nearby. Then, sometime near the middle of the night, I heard it. A whisper, soft enough that at first I thought someone in the room had spoken under their breath. I looked around. Nobody moved. The whisper came again, not from beside me, from inside the wall. I felt every hair rise on my arms. The voice sounded female, weak at first, almost playful. "Betsy." The girl immediately buried her face into her mother's shoulder. John Bell stood up so quickly his chair crashed backward against the floor. "Leave her be," he snapped into the darkness. For a moment, nothing answered. Then came laughter. Quiet, breathy. A woman laughing somewhere inside the cabin walls. I remember gripping my lantern so hard my fingers hurt. My mind searched desperately for a reason. Hidden pipes, wind, someone outside playing tricks. But deep down, another part of me already knew. Human voices do not travel through solid wood like that. The witch spoke again. "You brought him here, John." The voice sounded closer now, near the ceiling. I turned instinctively toward the sound, but there was nothing above us except rough wooden beams disappearing into shadow. Then Betsy screamed again. Invisible hands yanked her violently backward across the floor. I saw it happen with my own eyes. No rope, no person, no explanation. Just the girl sliding across the floorboards while claw marks appeared suddenly along her arms. Her mother grabbed hold of her dress while the younger children cried hysterically. And through all of it, the witch kept laughing. I wish I could tell you it sounded monstrous. It didn't. That was the worst part. It sounded human, like a real woman enjoying herself. John Bell fired his rifle into the ceiling in pure rage. The gunshot exploded through the cabin. Silence followed. Smoke drifted through the lantern light. Then the witch whispered calmly from somewhere near the fireplace, "You can't shoot a spirit, John." Nobody moved after that. Nobody even breathed loudly. I remember looking toward Betsy and realizing the attacks centered around her more than anyone else. The witch watched her constantly, spoke to her constantly, sometimes cruelly, sometimes almost affectionately. And that terrified me more than violence, because it felt personal. Near dawn, after hours of whispering and scratching sounds moving through the walls, John Bell finally told me the story the neighbors had only whispered pieces of before. He said it began months earlier. First came strange animals in the fields. One creature looked like a dog with the face of a rabbit. Another stood upright near the tree line, watching the house at sunset before disappearing into the woods. Then the sounds started. Chains dragging across the floor, knocking under the beds, children waking up screaming because invisible hands slapped them in the dark. But according to John, everything changed the moment the voice arrived. Because once the witch started speaking, it never truly stopped. It knew names, secrets, private conversations. Sometimes it repeated Bible verses perfectly. Other nights it cursed so violently the Bell children covered their ears crying. And always, it came back to Betsy. She follows the girl, John whispered to me near sunrise. The way he said it made the room feel colder. Who follows her? I asked quietly. John Bell looked toward the staircase. For several seconds he said nothing. Then, barely above a whisper, he answered, Kate. The name hung in the room like smoke, and somewhere inside the walls, something scratched slowly back and forth, as if listening to us speak about her. After John Bell said that name, Kate, the entire cabin changed, not in sound, in feeling. It was as if something inside the house had just acknowledged that it was being understood. The scratching in the walls stopped immediately, not gradually, instantly. That silence was worse than anything we had heard before. Betsy refused to look up from her mother's shoulder. Her breathing was uneven, like she had been running for hours. John Bell stood near the fireplace, staring at the wall where the sound had come from. His jaw clenched tight, as if holding back words he had never spoken before. I asked him quietly what he meant. Who is Kate? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sat down very slowly, like the weight of the question had drained him. Finally, he spoke. A woman from nearby, he said. Kate Batts. He didn't say it with certainty. He said it like a man repeating something he had heard too many times from too many frightened mouths. A land dispute, old anger, rumors that never fully died out in a small community like ours. But even as he spoke, I could see something in his expression that did not match the explanation. Because whatever was in that house did not feel like rumor. It felt present, alive, listening. That night, we decided none of us should sleep. We kept the lantern burning low and took turns watching the rooms. The children stayed close together. Betsy refused to be left alone even for a moment. Every time someone moved near her, she flinched like she expected pain to follow. Hours passed like that, slow, uneasy. Then, just after midnight, the witch spoke again. But this time it did not whisper from one place. It spoke from everywhere at once. John. The voice came from the ceiling. John. From behind the fireplace. John. From right beside my ear. I spun around so fast I nearly dropped my lantern. There was nothing there, but the air itself felt crowded, like something invisible had pressed itself into the room with us. Betsy began shaking uncontrollably. Stop it, John Bell said sharply into the darkness. Leave her alone. A soft laugh answered him, not mocking, not angry, amused. Then the witch spoke clearly again. "I told you I would come." John Bell went silent. The fire dimmed slightly even though no one touched it, and then something happened that I will never forget for as long as I live. Betsy's head snapped up suddenly, as if pulled by unseen force. Her eyes were open but unfocused. Her voice came out different, not like a frightened girl, like something using her mouth to speak. "Hello, John." Her mother screamed and pulled her close, but Betsy's body resisted for a moment, just a moment, like something else inside her was trying to hold its place. John Bell stepped forward, horrified. "What are you doing to my child?" he shouted. The witch answered immediately through Betsy's voice, "I am not doing anything." A pause, then softer, "I am remembering her." The words made no sense, but the way they were said chilled the entire room. Betsy suddenly collapsed back into her mother's arms, gasping like she had just been released from underwater. The witch's laughter followed instantly, low, close, satisfying. That was the night I understood something that John Bell already knew but had been too afraid to say out loud. This was not random haunting, it was attachment, focus, fixation, and Betsy was at the center of it. As dawn finally approached, the cabin grew quieter again, but not peaceful. Quiet like something resting after speaking too long. Before I left that morning light, I saw John Bell standing alone near the door, looking out toward the woods. He didn't turn when I approached him. He only said one thing, "If it stays with her." He stopped, then finished quietly, "It will never leave us." And behind us, inside the empty house, something softly laughed again. After that night, I stopped thinking of the Bell Witch as something random or distant. It was no longer a haunting in the way people described stories around a fire. It had become a presence that learned, adapted, and most importantly, it remembered. The next few days were worse than anything I had witnessed before. The attacks did not happen constantly anymore. Instead, they came at precise moments. When someone was alone, when someone was vulnerable, when Betsy was briefly out of sight. It felt planned, intentional, like something watching through the walls and choosing its timing carefully. Betsy barely slept. When she did, she would wake up screaming, sometimes with fresh scratches on her arms or hair pulled loose as if invisible hands had gripped her head in the dark. Her mother stayed with her constantly, refusing to leave her side even for a moment. John Bell stopped pretending the situation could be ignored. John Bell stopped pretending the situation could be ignored. He had aged rapidly in only a short time. His movements were slower, his face more drawn, and there was a permanent tension in his voice, like every word he spoke had to pass through fear first. But the most disturbing change was not in them. It was in the witch. It began speaking more directly, more clearly, as if it no longer needed to hide inside whispers. One evening, while I was sitting near the fireplace, the voice came from right beside the window. "Tell him," it said. I turned immediately, nothing there. John Bell looked up slowly. "Tell me what?" he asked. The witch did not answer at first. Instead, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Then it spoke again. "I do not like waiting." Betsy started crying before anything even happened, And then it happened. The lantern flame flickered violently, and every wooden plank in the cabin groaned at once, as if the entire structure had been squeezed by invisible hands. A chair tripped over on its own, a dish shattered on the table, and Betsy screamed as if something had grabbed her ankle and dragged her half a foot across the floor. John Bell fired his rifle toward the sound immediately. The blast echoed through the cabin, smoke filled the room, and for a brief moment, there was silence again. But it did not last. From above us, the witch laughed, this time louder, stronger, almost delighted. "You miss every time," it said. John Bell lowered his rifle slowly. His hands were shaking now, not from anger, from exhaustion. That night, he told me something he had never said before. Sitting near the dying fire, he spoke without looking at me. "It wants something from us," he said. I asked him what he thought it was. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared into the darkness beyond the lantern light for a long time. Then he said, "It wants her afraid." He meant Betsy. And the moment he said it, I realized something I had been avoiding understanding. The witch was not just attacking the family, it was studying emotional reactions, fear, pain, restraint, breakdown, especially hers, and it was getting better at it. That night, I stayed awake alone near the doorway while everyone else tried to rest. The house was quiet again, too quiet. Then, just before dawn, I heard Betsy whisper from her room, but she wasn't speaking to anyone in the room. She was speaking into the darkness. "Why me?" A pause. Then, from somewhere deep inside the walls, the witch answered softly, "Because you hear me." And for the first time, Betsy did not scream. She just sat there in the dark, listening back. After Betsy stopped screaming, the house felt different again. Not calmer, just more controlled, like something had finally established a rhythm inside the Bell home, and everything within it was being pulled into the pattern whether we agreed or not. That morning, Betsy refused to come out of her room. Her mother tried everything, prayer, comfort, even pleading. But Betsy stayed near the corner of her bed with her knees pulled tight to her chest, staring at the floor as if afraid to look at the walls again. John Bell did not force her. He only stood outside her door for a long time without speaking. I remember watching him and realizing something had changed in him too. He no longer acted like a man trying to protect his family. He acted like a man trying to negotiate with something he could not see. That afternoon, I went with him to check the property lines near the edge of the woods. He carried his rifle, but not in a threatening way, more like habit, like it no longer mattered whether he was armed or not. The forest was quiet, too quiet again. Even the wind seemed hesitant. John Bell stopped near an old fence line and looked out into the trees. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he spoke quietly, almost to himself. "I think it followed us here." I asked him what he meant. He shook his head slightly. "Not from the woods," he said, "from before." That was the first time I heard doubt in his certainty. Not fear, doubt. And it unsettled me more than anything the witch had done. That evening when we returned, the house was already wrong again. Before we even stepped inside, I heard Betsy crying, but there was something else mixed in with her voice. A second sound, laughing, from inside the cabin. John Bell rushed forward immediately. I followed. When we entered, the air felt thick, almost warm, despite the cold outside. The fire in the hearth was burning usually high, even though no one had added wood, and Betsy was standing in the middle of the room, not restrained, not held, just standing there, her head tilted slightly to one side, her eyes unfocused, and she was smiling, but it was not her smile. "Betsy," her mother called out, terrified. The girl did not respond, and she spoke, but her voice was not hers. It was calm, familiar, almost conversational. "You left me waiting," she said. John Bell stepped forward slowly. "Leave her alone," he said, but his voice was weaker now. The witch, or whatever was using her voice, tilted Betsy's head slightly toward him. "You always say that," it replied. Then it laughed softly. The sound echoed through the cabin like it belonged there. Betsy suddenly blinked hard and collapsed to her knees, gasping as if wakened from a deep sleep. Her mother rushed to her immediately, but Betsy was shaking violently, crying and confused. I didn't," she whispered. John Bell looked at me then, and I could see it in his face clearly now. This was no longer something attacking his family from outside. It had learned how to speak through them. That night, the witch did not appear loudly. It did not attack, it did not scream. Instead, it whispered from different parts of the house in slow rotation, like it was walking through the walls without moving its feet. And every time it spoke, it said one thing: "Betsy hears me," over and over again, until even silence began to feel like part of the voice. By the sixth night, I stopped being surprised by anything the Bell Witch did. That was the most dangerous realization I had on that farm, because fear is supposed to rise and fall. But this was different. This was constant exposure to something that never truly left. It simply changed where it stood. Inside the house, the atmosphere had grown heavier, as if the air itself had absorbed too many whispered words and could no longer release them. Betsy's condition shifted again. After that episode where she spoke in that other voice, she became quieter for long stretches of time. Not peaceful, never peaceful, but withdrawn. She avoided eye contact, she avoided the walls, and most of all, she avoided silence, as if silence itself had become a doorway she did not trust. John Bell noticed it too. He spent more time sitting near her now, watching her carefully, as if afraid that looking away even briefly would allow something to happen again. But the witch no longer needed surprise. It had patience now. One evening, while we were gathering near the fireplace, the wind outside picked up suddenly, the kind of wind that rattles old wood and makes every loose board complain. The fire flickered, and then the witch spoke, clearly, immediately, as if it had been waiting for that exact moment. "John." The room froze. No one moved. No one even breathed loudly. "John Bell." The voice came again, closer this time. John Bell didn't answer, but I saw his hand tighten around the edge of his chair. Then the witch continued, "She is listening." Betsy flinched instantly. "I am not," she whispered, but her voice cracked. The witch laughed softly. "You always are." John Bell stood up, slowly, carefully, like a man stepping into water he already knew was too deep. "What do you want?" he asked. The cabin fell into a silence so sharp it felt unnatural. Even the fire seemed to hesitate. Then the witch replied, "I want you to stop pretending you are alone here." The words lingered, heavy, intentional. John Bell's face changed slightly at that moment, not fear exactly, but something closer to recognition, as if the witch had touched a thought he had never spoken aloud. That night, the activity did not escalate in the usual way. There were no sudden attacks, no visible violence. Instead, the witch began speaking continuously, but softly, like a presence thinking out loud inside the walls. It spoke of John Bell, of Betsy, of what he brought into the land, and every sentence felt less like a haunting and more like an explanation being delivered to someone who had already heard it before. At one point, I asked John Bell directly if he had ever encountered anything like this before the disturbances began. He didn't answer immediately. He stared at the fire for a long time. Then he said something I did not fully understand at the time. "I thought it was finished," he whispered. The witch responded instantly. "It never finishes, John." And then, very softly, "It only waits until you're ready to remember." That was the moment I began to feel something deeper beneath all of this, not just a spirit tormenting a family, but a cycle that had already begun long before we arrived. Something tied not just to Betsy, but to John Bell himself. And when I looked at him again in that firelight, I saw something I had not noticed before. He was no longer only afraid of the witch, he was afraid of understanding it. After that night, John Bell changed in a way I cannot describe easily. It was not sudden, it was gradual, like a man slowly stepping out of his own certainty and leaving parts of himself behind. He stopped asking what the witch wanted. He stopped reacting to every sound. And most troubling of all, he began listening, not to us, not to his family, to the house, to the space between words, to the silence that followed the witch's voice. Betsy noticed it before anyone else did. She told her mother one morning, quietly, that Papa is different now. Her mother tried to dismiss it, but even she could not deny the shift. Her mother tried to dismiss John Bell no longer moved through the cabin like something defending it. He moved like something or someone waiting for instructions. That evening, I saw him standing alone near the window as the sun went down behind the trees. He was not looking outside. He was watching the reflection in the glass, as if expecting something to appear behind him that only he could see. I approached carefully. "John," I said, "you need to stop listening to it." He did not turn. Instead, he spoke softly. "It's not speaking anymore," he said. I frowned. "What do you mean?" He finally looked at me then, and there was something in his eyes I had not seen before. Not madness, not fear, something closer to acceptance. "It is remembering," he said. That night, the witch's behavior changed again. The voice became less playful, less chaotic, more structured. It began speaking in full sentences, sometimes long ones, as if telling a story to itself, and every sentence felt directed not at the family, but at John Bell specifically. "You tried to bury it," it said once. "You tried to build over it. You tried to forget what was already here." Betsy covered her ears, but the voice still seemed to reach her because it was not just sound, it was presence. John Bell finally responded after a long silence. "What are you talking about?" he asked. The witch replied immediately, "You know." The room grew colder, the fire dimmed slightly, and for the first time since I had known him, John Bell looked away from the room itself and toward the floor, as if something beneath the house mattered more than anything above it. Later that night, I followed him outside when he could no longer stay inside the cabin. The moon was thin, the land quiet. We stood near the edge of the property where the trees began. He didn't speak at first. Then he said something I will never forget. "If it is Kate," he said slowly, "then she was already here before us." I asked him what he meant. He shook his head. "I don't think she came from outside." He looked back toward the house and then added quietly, "I think she came from what we disturbed." Before I could respond, a faint whisper drifted across the field, not from the house, not from the trees, everywhere at once. "John." We both froze. The voice was softer than before, almost familiar, almost patient, and then it said, "You're remembering now." John Bell closed his eyes, and for the first time, he did not deny it. After those words, "You're remembering now," something in John Bell stopped resisting completely. Not his body, not his speech, something deeper. Like a door inside him that had been locked for a long time finally given way without force. We returned to the cabin in silence. Neither of us spoke, not because there was nothing to say, but because everything suddenly felt like it had already been said before. Inside, Betsy was asleep, or at least pretending to be. Her mother sat beside her, exhausted beyond words. The younger children were curled together near the fire, which had burned low again, struggling against an air that seemed to drain warmth from it. John Bell stood in the center of the room for a long time without moving. Then he spoke, not to us, not to his family, but into the room itself. "What do you want from me?" The witch answered immediately, not from one place, from all of them. "You always ask that question." The fire flickered, the walls creaked, and Betsy stirred in her sleep. Then the voice continued, softer now. "You asked it before." John Bell went still. I saw his throat tighten. "I don't understand," he said quietly. The witch replied, "You built this place on silence." A pause. Then, "And you thought silence would stay buried." The room felt suddenly too small, too tight, like the air itself was pressing inward. Betsy sat up abruptly, her eyes open but unfocused again. But this time she did not speak. She only looked at her father and smiled faintly. John Bell stepped forward instinctively. "No," he said sharply, as if warning something unseen. But the witch spoke through the room again. She remembers. Betsy's voice followed immediately after, but it was not her voice. It was calm, clear, familiar in a way that made my stomach turn. You said it would stay quiet. John Bell's face went pale. I didn't mean, he started, but the witch interrupted instantly. You always mean what you cannot undo. The fire collapsed slightly, not extinguished, but weakened, like something had taken heat away from it. Betsy suddenly gasped and slumped back into her mother's arms, shaking violently as if waking from a nightmare she couldn't escape. Her mother cried out her name, but Betsy didn't respond. She just whispered, "It knows him." That was the first time I truly saw fear break John Bell. Not panic, not shock, but something far deeper. Recognition mixed with regret. As if whatever was inside that house was not just attacking him, but confronting something he had avoided for years. That night, the witch did not escalate. It did not scream. It did not attack. Instead, it spoke gently, almost conversationally, while the house remained still. "You cannot pretend anymore, John." A pause. Then, "You brought me back." John Bell did not answer, and for the first time, he didn't argue. He just stood there in the dim firelight, listening to something only he could understand. After that night, the Bell farm stopped feeling like a place where something was happening. It felt like a place where something had already decided what was going to happen next. John Bell no longer slept properly. When he did lie down, it was for short, broken intervals, more like surrender than rest. He would sit up suddenly, staring into the dark corners of the room as if expecting something to already be there, waiting for him when he opened his eyes. Betsy's condition also changed again. The moments of possession-like speech became less frequent, but far more controlled when they happened. It was no longer random screaming or sudden bursts of violence. Now it felt like communication, brief, deliberate, directed, and always centered around her father. One evening, as if the fire burned low and the house settled into uneasy silence, the witch spoke again. But this time, it did not come from the walls first. It came through John Bell, very faintly, a whisper escaping him without his intent. "I hear you," he said. Everyone in the room froze. John Bell blinked, as if realizing what he had just said himself. "I didn't," he started. But the witch answered immediately, "Yes, you do." The fire flared once, then settled, and John Bell slowly lowered himself into his chair, trembling, not with fear anymore, with exhaustion. Like a man who had been holding a weight for too long and was finally starting to lose the strength to keep it up. That night, I stayed awake near the door again. I watched the family sleep in fragments. Betsy uneasy, her mother constantly shifting, the younger children restless even in exhaustion, and John Bell. John Bell did not sleep at all. He sat in the dark, still, listening. Then just before dawn, the witch spoke again, not loudly, not dramatically, almost gently. "You are closed now." John Bell closed his eyes and answered quietly, "Closed to what?" A long silence followed, the kind that feels like something thinking. Then the witch replied, "To remember what you buried." That word, buried, made the room feel colder than anything I had yet experienced. John Bell stood slowly, and for the first time, he did not look toward Betsy. He looked toward the floorboards, as if the answer was not in the room, but beneath it. I remember stepping forward and asking him what he meant, but he didn't respond. Instead, the witch spoke through and said, as if the answer was not in the room, then softer, "You built your peace over me." A pause, and I learned your name because of it. John Bell finally whispered something I barely heard. I didn't know, and the witch answered immediately, "That is why I stayed." Outside, the wind began moving again for the first time in days, slowly, like the world itself had started breathing again. But inside the cabin, something had already begun to surface that could not be stopped anymore. By the time the 10th night arrived, nothing inside the Bell cabin felt accidental anymore. Every sound, every silence, every flicker of the fire seemed arranged, like the house itself was following a script only it and the witch understood. John Bell had stopped reacting entirely, not out of peace, out of resignation. He would sit in his chair for hours, eyes open, breathing slow, as if waiting for someone that had already told himself it was coming. Betsy no longer fought the voice the way she once did. She listened. Sometimes she even responded in small fragments, questions, whispers, half-finished sentences, like a person learning a language they did not want to know but could not stop hearing. That evening, the atmosphere inside the cabin changed again. The fire burned too steadily, the air felt too still. Even the usual creaks of the wood stopped, as if the house itself had gone quiet to hear better. Then the witch spoke, but this time it did not begin with a name. It began with a statement. "You are ready." John Bell closed his eyes and nodded once. Betsy saw it. "Papa," she said quietly, but he didn't answer her. The witch continued, calmer than ever before. "You tried to forget me." A pause. "You tried to bury what was already awake." John Bell finally spoke. His voice was low, tired. I didn't understand what it was. The witch responded instantly. "You understood enough." The fire dimmed slightly, and for the first time there was no laughter afterward, no teasing, no cruelty, only direction. It felt like something approaching its final shape. John Bell slowly stood up. His hands were shaking, but his posture was steady. He looked at me briefly, not for help, not for confirmation, but as if acknowledging that I had witnessed enough to understand what came next, even if I didn't fully want to. Then he spoke, not to the witch, but into the room. "If this is what you want, then stop hiding." The air changed immediately, not violently, but completely, like the house had just inhaled. Betsy stood up at the same time, her expression blank, eyes unfocused again. But this time, she did not cry. She did not resist. She simply looked toward her father and whispered, "It's already here." John Bell turned slowly toward the center of the room, and for the first time, he smiled faintly. Not happiness, not relief, recognition. "I know," he said. The witch answered immediately from everywhere, "Yes." The fire collapsed, not extinguished, collapsed, like it had been released from holding its shape. The room fell into a deep, absolute stillness. Then the witch spoke one final sentence before everything changed. "You called me back, John Bell." And John Bell replied with hesitation, "I remember now." That was the moment everything in the cabin stopped feeling like a haunting and started feeling like an ending that had been waiting a very long time to arrive. Outside, the wind finally returned, slowly, like the world itself was stepping back into motion after holding its breath. Inside the Bell cabin, something unseen finally stepped forward. After John Bell said those words, "I remember now," the cabin did not immediately change. It settled, like a decision had been accepted, but the result was still unfolding somewhere beyond what we could see. No one spoke for a long time. Betsy stood frozen in the middle of the room, her face pale, her eyes no longer frightened, but distant, like part of her was listening somewhere else entirely. John Bell remained standing too, still, calm in a way that did not belong to any man I had ever known before that night. And the witch did not speak. That silence was not absence, it was presence without sound. The fire in the hearth barely flickered now, reduced to weak glowing embers. Even that felt intentional, as if light itself had agreed to step back. Then, finally, the witch spoke again, but not from the walls, not from Betsy, not from the air. It came from John Bell, softly, as if spoken through him rather than by him. "You built it here," he said. Betsy's mother gasped. John Bell closed his eyes as if the words were not new to him, but returning. The witch continued through his voice, "And you forgot what you sealed beneath it." John's lips trembled. "I didn't seal anything," he whispered. The response came immediately. "Yes, you did." The room felt suddenly heavier, not colder, heavier, like pressure pressing down from all directions at once. Betsy stepped back slowly. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "Papa, stop." But John Bell raised a hand slightly, not toward her, toward the space in front of him, as if signaling something unseen to wait. Then he spoke again, his own voice returning for a moment. "What do you want from us?" The witch answered, and this time it sounded closer than ever before, not playful, not angry, certain. What was already owed. A long pause followed, and in that pause, I realized something I had avoided understanding from the beginning. This was not an invasion, not a random spirit, not even just a curse. It felt like something completing a return. John Bell slowly lowered his head and spoke quietly. "I tried to forget." The witch replied instantly, "You succeeded only in forgetting that I would come back." Betsy suddenly cried out, not in fear, but in pain, clutching her head as if something inside her was pressing outward. Her mother rushed to her, but Betsy's voice broke through the room again, thin, strained, overlapping with something else. "He is opening it again." John Bell looked up sharply. "Stop this," he said. But the witch answered through both silence and sound at once. It is already open. The fire finally went out, not by wind, not by fuel, but as if it had simply been told it was no longer needed. The cabin plunged into darkness, yet no one moved, because in that darkness, something felt fully present for the first time, not moving, not hiding, arrived. And John Bell stood at the center of it all, as if waiting for the final word he already knew was coming. After the fire went out, there was no immediate chaos, no final scream, no dramatic breaking of the house, only darkness, deep, complete darkness. So still it felt like the entire cabin had been removed from the world and placed somewhere without time. And in that darkness, John Bell stood perfectly still, not searching, not calling out, not resisting. It felt like he was no longer reacting to anything around him at all. Betsy's breathing was the only thing I could hear for a while, fast, uneven. Her mother held her tightly, but even she seemed afraid to move, as if movement itself might disturb something invisible now fully present in the room. Then the witch spoke, not loudly, not suddenly, just clearly. "You are here." John Bell answered immediately, "I am here." There was no hesitation in his voice, no fear, no confusion, only recognition. That was when I understood something I had been avoiding since the beginning of this nightmare. The witch was not arriving, it was completing a cycle that had been unfolding around John Bell long before any of us understood its shape. The voice continued, softer now. "You remembered." John Bell nodded slightly. "I did." Betsy cried out again, but it was weaker this time, as if something inside her was losing strength rather than gaining it. "Papa," she whispered. But he did not turn toward her, not because he didn't care, but because he was no longer choosing between voices in the room. He was listening to only one. The witch spoke again. "You called me back into your house." A pause. "And now you will finish what you started." John Bell closed his eyes. For a long moment, nothing happened. No movement, no sound. Even the air felt suspended. Then he spoke, not as a question, not as a denial, but as acceptance. "I understand." The room reacted instantly, not with noise, but with pressure, as if the walls had tightened inward just slightly, acknowledging something final. Betsy collapsed into her mother's arms, unconscious or overwhelmed, I could not tell which. And I stood there, unable to move, watching John Bell in the center of that darkness. He looked peaceful now, not alive in the way we understand it, but settled, as if something inside him had finally aligned with something that had been waiting far too long. The witch's voice returned one last time, not cruel, not loud, almost complete. "John Bell." He opened his eyes. "Yes." And the witch said the final words I will never forget. "It is finished." After that, there was nothing. No whisper, no knock, no movement in the walls. Just silence so absolute it felt unnatural even for a place that had known terror for so long. When dawn finally came, it did not arrive with fear or relief. It arrived like distance, slowly revealing a cabin that no longer felt occupied by anything unseen, only by the aftermath of something that had finally concluded its purpose. John Bell lay where he had fallen, still gone, and the witch was never heard from in that house again. But the land remembers differently because those who passed by the old Bell farm in the years that followed still spoke of moments when the wind would stop too suddenly, or when a voice, almost familiar, seemed to carry across empty fields just long enough to make someone turn around, not calling for help, not threatening, just remembering that it once had a name. And in that silence, the story never truly ended. It only stepped back into the place where all unfinished things go, waiting, not for the Bell family anymore, but for whoever listens too closely in the dark and wonders what might answer back.